Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Soul-Centered CEO Show. I'm so excited to be back with you this week and also to have my special guest, Carrie Kaufman. Welcome, Carrie, to the show.
Haley, such an honor and pleasure to be here.
Always a blessing to spend time with you, dear. I do want to share just a bit about your bio, just so that everyone knows kind of where you're at in the world and what's going on right now. You are the CEO of enLiven, a beautiful retreat center located in Vermont. Can't wait to be there. There are two pieces of your business: running yoga and transformational retreats around the world, and the beautiful retreat center in Vermont, where you host other retreat leaders to come and share their magic with their clients.
Exactly.
Your dream really is to bring healing and transformation to the world on a broad scale. And you have two amazing sons that remind you daily of what your true purpose is in life. Oh, I love it. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks. I love hearing that back at me. It's lovely.
It's fun, isn't it? It's
yes, I must have written it while I was inspired.
Yeah, you're like, that's my life. Huh, how cool. So fun. You know, I love when our guests share the stories of their lives, right? And how really you've kind of created this beautiful, what it feels to me like just this beautiful hybrid of both a soul aligned business and life, right? And that's really what we're talking about, is how can you kind of find that sweet spot where you are showing up in a beautiful way of high level service and impact in the world, and you love what you're creating at the same time. So I'd love for you to maybe take a minute, Carrie, and share with us what brought you through, because you know you've got also a corporate job and you've got all these other pieces of your life, but the retreat piece really feels like something that lights you up. How did you get started doing retreats? And then we'll walk through your journey on how you've gotten to enLiven.
Sure. Boy, there's a lot to unpack there. So I guess I will start by saying I come from a highly conditioned place from my family of origin. Mm-hmm. And that conditioning was to be very hard driving, to be very career oriented, and to be very corporate focused. And that defines pretty much the first 40 years of my life, was getting degrees, getting promotions, working harder, rising above the corporate ladder. And when I got pregnant with my second child, I sort of just had this huge realization, like enough. I want a inspired life, and this life is not inspired. And so I picked up my family, I sold my house, and we moved up to Saratoga Springs, New York, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I said, okay, kids, have a normal life. We're going to ride bikes. We're going to have a community. We're going to go play. Very soon thereafter, I ended up leaving my husband, who had been my best friend for 30 years. So it was a very big defining moment, to say the least, in my life. And here I was in a town where I really didn't have any support structure. I didn't have any family, and I had these two little creatures to take care of in the world. And I had taken a gigantic step back in my corporate career. So I would say that was the defining moment in my life. And I've always been guided by angels, and my angels, instead of guiding me to vodka, guided me to yoga teacher training, which I'm very blessed for that, because I know a lot of people who really liked vodka when they went for a divorce. I opted for yoga. And I started becoming a yoga teacher, and I started my yoga journey. And I really thought that my teacher training was about my personal healing. But as I started on that path, the message very clearly to me always was that I wanted to give that to the world, and I wanted to bring it back to the world. So that was about 15 years ago when I started teaching yoga, and I started really going deep into my own personal practice. And part of that led me to a yoga studio in Omaha, Nebraska, which led me to my first yoga retreat, to get back to your question. And I went on this yoga retreat with this studio I was familiar with from Omaha. And I would just say I had a very disappointing experience. And it was disappointing in a lot of different ways. And as a yoga practitioner, I was very discouraged that this was what people were offering to the world and to the community at large. It was very, very expensive. And I didn't feel that it created the kind of experience that I personally would want if I was going on a yoga retreat. And they didn't really give it much of a thought after that, other than that wasn't great. And maybe that's not my yoga studio. And then I went to Belize with a friend of mine. And Belize was this place I'd always wanted to go to. And she called me one day and said, I need a gal pal to come to Belize with me. Come hang out with me in Belize. I'm like, hell yes, all day, every day.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm standing on the bank of, I guess, the Caribbean, maybe the Pacific, one of those bodies of water, while I was in Belize. And I was in Hopkins, Belize, which is not a particularly beautiful part of Belize. And I'm looking out at the water and I get this very strong message. And I'm very fortunate that I get very strong messages when I need to hear them. And the message said, bring a retreat here. And I was like, here? Like right here?
Yeah.
Like, first of all, retreat? What? Okay, we'll do that. So the woman who happened to manage the place where we were staying, I called her a couple of weeks later and said, I want to bring a yoga retreat to Belize. And she said, well, I don't work there anymore. I went to this place out in South Island Cay, and we could probably do a retreat there. And I had been there. It's this miraculous tiny little island off the mainland in the middle of 3 different bodies of water that's connected to an underwater ecological park. It's kind of the most miraculous place I've been in the whole world.
Wow.
So she supported me, and she kind of created this whole retreat structure where a place where I could do yoga and meals and the whole thing. And somehow I ended up taking 18 people to South Island Key in the middle of nowhere in Belize about 7 or 8 years ago. And I had developed a process of transformation. I took people through that process. We did yoga, we meditated, we went to a pirate island, we snorkeled. It was truly a miraculous integrated experience. And kind of from that point, enlivenRetreats was born. And what I wanted to do was create a business where I could take those kinds of retreats that incorporated always the same sort of 4 tenets. There would be yoga, and there would be meditation. There would be some kind of outdoor experience that encapsulated the geography where we were and the season of where we were. And there would be some structure in place that would create significant connection and attachment between the people that came on these events. So that starts from the point that they sign up through Facebook groups, through different sharing of pictures and bios, to what happens when you get there, a goodie bag upon arrival, a theme of the event from start to finish, the follow-up afterwards, and how we stay in touch. And that it wasn't just come do yoga twice a day and then go home and say you had a lovely vacation, but really went through a start to finish theme and transformative kind of experience that you left taking away something that was really meaningful that you were going to work on. And so I left my corporate career for 2 years, and I created this business. And I started to run 6, 8, 10 retreats a year. A local resort here in the Adirondacks asked me to partner with them and do 8 retreats a year for them on the weekends. So I started doing that locally. And then I would keep doing ones in Belize, Tulum, Costa Rica. And honestly, I kind of love all of them. So it wasn't like one took precedence over the other. I think the local ones were really accessible for people. So that was really nice. People asked me for that, something that they could do just a weekend, not too expensive, within a reasonable geography. But then people also wanted to go on vacation. Yeah. So there you have it.
I love it. Oh my goodness. First of all, and I've shared this with you before, but it's just really interesting how similar a lot of our background is, right? I was on that same track, did the corporate thing. Finally, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't working for me anymore. And I did the same, kind of like, let's take the show on the road and create these beautiful experiences. And I think, of all the things that we can do in our lives, making an impact and a difference for people in whatever way that we do that is so rewarding. And so it's such a blessing to be able to serve in that way. So
it is. And the first person who looks at you and says, you changed my life. Like there's absolutely no way to describe that feeling. There's nothing else. Look at you, you're crying. You're so sweet.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so true.
There's nothing I've ever done in my whole entire life that has felt like that, right? And if I tell you, I mean, the number of, I hate to say it, you know, divorces, children, job changes, geographic changes, new relationships, the significant changes in people's lives that came about because of one retreat.
Yeah.
And so I guess that sort of is the bridge to enLiven at the Green River, which is my first retreat center.
Yeah.
As you think about one retreat can create that kind of impact, what about a whole relationship and a whole lifetime of that kind of connection?
Right.
And doing local retreats in particular, I found it was very hard to create the exact experience that I wanted in somebody else's space.
Yeah.
There was something about being able to control the flow, being able to control the menu, the timing, the other people around you, and even the experiences to some extent. So I started on a journey with a friend of mine who I had done some retreats with, my current partner, Brenda Stokey. And we started looking at what would this look like. And it was really a journey of complete law of attraction, manifestation, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. We would go to auctions and we'd look at people that were selling these like 100-acre parcels of land with event centers on them. We looked at B&Bs and it was like, well, we like that, but we don't like that. And we kind of came up with our must-have list. It has to have running water. It has to have a property on a separate property on the land that we can use as additional income opportunity. There needs to be a space where we can do yoga inside and out. We need extra space. We got very, very, very specific in what it was that we wanted.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a exercise in fun, right? Like let's play make believe. Let's like go buy a retreat center, right? Yeah. And I never really took it that seriously. I never thought like, yeah, I'm buying a retreat center. It was just kind of like, this is fun to look at these beautiful buildings.
Yeah.
And then a year ago, right now, actually, early December, right, I was spending a lot of time in Vermont. And I was driving down this particular road. And every time I drove down this road, I would get this message that's like this voice in the back of my head that would say, go on Zillow and look for B&Bs in the state of Vermont. And I got that message every single time I went and every single time I came home. And it was right at the same place in the road where there was this street sign that's a little bit greener than all the other street signs on this long highway. Yeah. And it literally would happen every single time I went and every single time I came back. But sometimes it takes me a while to integrate such things.
Yeah.
So sometime in January, my partner came over, my friend Brenda came over, and we were doing a working session, and we were just talking about the work that we had been doing. I had actually just come out of a 30-day Mike Dooley change one thing adventure that started in January for 30 days. And I was focused on finding joy in my life. I wasn't specific. I want to feel joy each and every single day of my life. Yeah. And my retreat business had ground to a halt because of COVID. And so I was just meditating a lot. I was focused on my health. I was focused on my diet. I was focused on my sleep. I was focused on feeling really good and not really thinking about what my next step was going to be. And Brenda and I were sharing our current journeys at the time. And I was like, oh my God, we have to go on Zillow and look at bed and breakfasts in the state of Vermont. And she's like, okay. So we went on the computer and we went to Zillow and we looked for bed and breakfast in Vermont. And the first one that came up was a big hotel that we knew of. And we're like, yeah, no, that's not it. And then there's this listing, and it was like a little thumbnail picture about this big of this shabby little building. Yeah. And it said bed and breakfast for sale. And I started reading it, 12,000 square foot inn with a 3-bedroom carriage house and a pavilion on a river. I'm like, this is insane, right? And then the price, which was like a third of the price of the one above it. Right. And I'm like, this is going to be really, really bad, but we have to look at it because it's so crazy. Yeah. Well, in COVID, you could not go into the state of Vermont if you did not live there.
Oh my gosh.
So, as luck would have it, the person I was dating at the time lived in Vermont. So I called him. I said, we need you to go on a mission for us.
Convenient. Yes. Yep.
Go look at this inn. So we clicked into the real estate agent on Zillow, which if you've ever bought any real estate, they really take the most junior real estate agents in the world and give them Zillow, right?
Yeah.
Somehow we ended up with the best real estate agent in the state of Vermont, perhaps even in the world.
Wow.
On this particular Zillow page. So she agreed to show it to our friend, and he went and looked, and he took literally 500 pictures, and he sent them to us. And he called me and he said, the only thing I can tell you is it's quaint as fuck and you need to go see it.
Oh my God. Perfect.
And he was kind of a no guy. So that was like a huge endorsement, huge endorsement. So we called the real estate agent and we said, how can we get into the state of Vermont? We really want to come. She's like, wear masks. Don't tell anybody. I'll show you the place.
Yeah.
So we go, and it's January in Vermont. There's snow, there's mud, not a particularly beautiful time. We pull into this little inn, and the sign is kind of like hanging from a chain, and it's sort of falling and it's swinging, and it says the Green River Inn. And we're like, okay. So we get out of our car. We meet Margreta, who's a manifester, by the way. So she gets out of her car and she has this presence, and she's like, I'm so glad you guys are here. And as she said that, the property kind of said that to us too. Like, we're so glad you guys are here. Yeah. And we started walking the land. And the first thing we see is the river is coming down, and it doesn't freeze the river. And it's called the Green River because it has copper in it. And it's the cleanest river in the state of Vermont. And it's glimmering and shimmering at us. And we're like, well, that's a nice touch, you know? And so then we keep walking, and we see the deck, and we see the fire pit, and we see the pavilion. And we kind of look at each other, and we're like, this feels like we're being punked. Like, this is the craziest thing ever. So then we go inside thinking, you know, the roof is going to be falling down. And we walk in, and it's breathtaking. And the craziest thing about it is the innkeeper had been taking care of her sick mother, and it was COVID, so she wasn't really open to guests, but she had a ton of energy. So all she did was like constantly maintain, and clean. So the place was immaculate. There was not a piece of chipped paint in the entire 12,000 square feet. Wow. And the only thing we could really say of it, some of it was tired, some of it was dated. It felt kind of sleepy. Yeah. But we looked at it, and we knew what we could do.
We knew the bones were good. Yeah, for sure.
And we knew what was possible. And then we walked, and we saw the Carriage House, which was a 3-bedroom house on the same piece of land. And then there was this tiny little building that was the original house on the property, which was the house from 1765 that the original family lived in. And they were using it as a storage shed, and it had chicken wire around it, and it was a mess. I was like, well, I'm not sure what we do with that. And Brenda's like, well, that becomes our spa. I'm like, okay. Perfect. Okay, sure. Right, we could do that. So we go back in, and we're looking at each other. I'm like, this space needs us, right? And then the owner of the inn says, can you sit down and have coffee with me? This is COVID, and it was all crazy. So we sat down, we had coffee, and basically she blessed giving us this property. She said, I want you guys to have it. I love your vision. And Brenda's vision had always been to create a healing center. And I knew that I always wanted to do this kind of work. I've known for some time. And so it just came to be. And, you know, like I said, the law of attraction is crazy, right? Because then all the angels appeared just one by one by one by one. We called the bank and said, we want to buy the Green River Inn. And they're like, well, we're not funding any kind of hospitality business in 2021. So you can file your application, but we're not going to fund it. I said, that's fine. We'll file the application. So we filed the application. They call me 2 days later and say, congratulations, your application's been approved. And in fact, the Vermont Economic Development Corp wants to invest in this business too. We're like, okay.
Okay, perfect. Right. Oh my gosh.
So we started in, January. We ended up not closing till April. We ended up having our first retreat the week before we closed. We had to rent the property back from the seller because the closing was so complicated and everything was crazy. But we did our first retreat before we owned it. It was fine. It was very much in the depths of the early stages of COVID. And we're like, we're doing it anyways. Yeah. And we've done We've done about 10 or 12 retreats. Our first couple of retreats were for retreat leaders. We let them come for a very reduced price so they could experience it. And a good number of those folks booked future retreats. And we've now held those retreats. Now we're moving into corporate retreats and board retreats. I want to talk to you about a CEO retreat. For everybody on this channel right now. I want to do a CEO retreat for burnt out CEOs and tools for keeping the energy flowing. And every week something beautiful shows up. So that's where we are. And as that business gains momentum, my other retreat business gains momentum as well. So I'm running a week-long, really, really beautiful retreat in Italy in October of 22. I am looking at Bali for January of 23. I'm going to Costa Rica probably in the winter of 23. And I am helping somebody do 4 different retreats in Cozumel, Mexico in January, February, March of 22. So, and that's all just within the last kind of, in the post vaccinated world of 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks. So I whatever shows up, shows up.
Wow. It's just so exciting to see, I think when we, and I talk a lot about this in the framework in the CEO collective, it's that when you get the calling, right, you have to, are you willing to answer the call? Right. And it can be really scary to step out of the corporate thing or whatever the thing is, right, and do something that might feel a little expansive, maybe a little uncomfortable. But when we answer the call and we step into that full alignment, there is no way that what we're doing will not be successful. I just believe that. Like it all will end up in beautiful aligned timing, right, at the perfect time. And so it feels like that's exactly what happened for you guys on, the search. You got the hit. You're like, well, this is kind of something I need to pay attention to. And then
sometimes you step into something that you haven't arrived to yet.
Oh yeah.
And I've heard Abraham talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
That you sometimes it shows up and it's in your vibration, and maybe it actually physically shows up, but your mind, your heart, your soul just isn't quite there yet. And it's that journey that who you really are really starts to unfold, right? So I would say that's what we have spent the last year on surfacing and undoing and excavating, the fear, the scarcity, the worthiness, the partnership, right? All of those things. It's been an amazing journey. And I'm sure every single CEO in the collective has experienced all of those things while they are listening, answering the calling, because I think by and large, it always happens that way, right? You make an offer on a house and it's like, but I can't really afford it yet. It's that before you step into it, am I really going to be big enough for that? That's so big. Am I that big? Right. And then one day you're like, no, I'm way bigger. I'm way, way bigger than that.
Yeah. And it's almost like you have to step into it maybe before you're ready, but then it's almost like, who do I need to become in order to create that in the world? Right.
And I think with manifestation, we always get it before we're ready for it. I think it always happens before we're ready for it. And that's how it defines who you are, right? I really think that's the game. I think that's what the universe does. And I think they giggle when they do it, right? Like, ha, 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 ha. You wanted to do this? Here you go. It's way bigger than you ever thought.
Way bigger. And I'm actually in that place right now where there's something coming that's so, it's like, and I was telling my friend yesterday, it's like that place between like, I'm super excited and so anxious about it. You just almost want to throw up. Like it's that space where you like think, oh, this is the next edge. This is the next level, because that's a stretch, And I think the more we allow ourselves to step into that next level, that's where the magic is, right? And that's when you're like, oh my gosh, I did it. And not only did it, but it was extraordinary. It turns out even better than you think. And I I can feel and sense that that's the kind of events and experiences and retreats that you create. You know, that's always my intention too. It's like to awe and like delight people with the magic that unfolds, right? It's the best.
Yeah.
The best.
And what we were talking about this weekend is when you move into that space of feeling like it's done,
Yeah.
like the what's next, where you're planting seeds for like 2023 now. So now the energy that we're planting, these seeds that we're planting are for the next year, because everything that's showing up today is from the seeds we planted a year ago, right? So if it's this good now, what's going to unfold a year from now, right? With the seeds that we're planting today, right?
Yeah.
And what does that trajectory look like?
Yeah,
So,
it's exciting too. There's so much possibility and so much opportunity. And I really feel like, you know, one of the things that has been so transformative for me in our community that you're stepping into in the CEO Collective is just the idea of collaboration and connection and the deepening of relationships in a way that allow us to grow and expand, that don't require us to just be like out on our own, doing our own thing by ourselves. You know, there's just such a beautiful collaborative energy that I think is happening. And I can't wait to see how much more is possible as we move forward as well.
yeah, I think that's a really important point. I think the reason why I haven't become an entrepreneur before this is that I'm a co-creator. I know this about myself.
Yeah.
I absolutely need people like yourself to bounce ideas off of, to help drive me towards expansion. I'm a generator. I'm in response. And that's really, really apparent to me when I start a business or when I'm doing that. I really, really cherish that opportunity to collaborate with others to move it forward. And our whole business is based on partnership. Every single person that we work with, we have a significant relationship and partnership with it. I mean, it's the stories. Brenda and I talk about writing a book because the stories are so rich. Like the painter who came and painted our rooms and who spent 3 months with us because it was a side gig, and he would come and paint on the weekends, and he would charge us $200 a room, and he would paint a room, like an entire room, and we pay him $200. He was the cutest thing in the world. Yeah. And so we gave them a membership to the inn in exchange for his dedicated service to the inn. And he has this lovely wife, and they called and they asked if she could have her birthday party at the Green River Inn. And because they had a whole lot of people coming in. And we're like, absolutely, you know, our place is your place. So we find out Susie's 60th birthday party was the first birthday party she ever had in her whole entire life.
Oh my gosh, that makes me want to cry. Bless her. Oh my goodness.
That was at the end. Like, that's the kind of magic we're talking about, right? That's the kind of magic.
It's so beautiful. Well, and even from the very first conversation you and I had, I'm like, oh, this is a magical connection for sure. So now it's sweet that you're stuck with me for a whole year inside the CEO Collective. We're so excited to have you part of that beautiful community. And I do want to make sure before we close out today, what is the best way for people that are listening and want to be in your vortex and in your world? What's the best way for them to find you and connect with you? Obviously, we can put the links in the show notes as well, but if you want to just share the best way.
Yeah, the best way is we're a little bit in flux in terms of branding and websites and emails. So enlivenVT for the state of Vermont, enliven, enlivenVT.com.
Okay.
And then any place where you could put in a contact here, sign up for that website, and we will contact you. So.
Perfect. You'll update them on any events and things. And do you have your events listed on your website?
Absolutely. Yep. All the local events. If some of our partner events are on there, all my retreats in other places are there. So yeah,
beautiful.
Right
well,
there.
I'm so excited for all the things that are unfolding and all the ways that people can that we can gather together. You know, that we can be in real life. It's my favorite. So I can't wait for us to be able to do that here soon.
I'm super excited, and I can't wait to host everybody here at enLiven at the Green River. It's going to be magical.
So good. Thank you so much, darling, for your time today. I appreciate it. Always love the minutes that we get together and can't wait. We might have to do another one of these at some point with some more updates. We'll see.
Excellent. I'd love it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. And we look forward to having you join us for the next episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show.